After the tragic and unnecessary death of George Floyd, millions rose up in protest against the problem. Black Lives Matter helped raise a much-needed dialogue. Many communities, both large and small, rose up to give their support. I'm glad to know that Chadron didn't shy away from this discussion, as we had two of our very own protests. One led over the past summer, largely by the CSC administration, the Chadron community, and Trajan Garcia, a concerned community member. We also had another one recently this past fall, led by CSC athlete Jordan Morris and the president of the Diversity Club.
We thought Bear Alexander would be the perfect keynote speaker, as we have been putting the spotlight on those who make differences in their community while also playing a large role in the fight against police brutality, and continue the discussion of bringing equality to all people. And on that note, I would like to introduce our keynote interview with Bear Alexander.
Thank you so much for participating in this year's MLK Day events. We hope you will join us this next semester as we put on more events with the Social Science Club. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Be a pricing system trying to fight back against our resistance.
We are now using force to disperse a peaceful protest.
Hands up! Hands up! Hands up! Hands up! Hands up!
All about direct action and disrupting the comfort of the oppressive system that we live in.
We don't get it! If we don't get it! If we don't get it!
Shut it down!
I said if we don't get it!
Bear, thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for being our keynote speaker for our MLK conference. Thank you for letting us house this interview in your house. Our keynote this year, we were putting the spotlight on an African American who's done a lot of work in the community, which is you. You put a lot of work into this community by frontlining a lot of the protests here in Omaha, Nebraska. You started your own foundation called Pro-Black, and you're even pressing charges against the city of Omaha for their actions in the protests that you were a part of. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Tell us a little about yourself.
My name is Bear Alexander. Grew up in Omaha, Nebraska. When I was 17 years old, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, what my goals were in life. And then I was reading a book by Eldridge Cleaver, and it's called Soul on Ice. And in the book, he was quoted saying, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And at that point in time, I was under the impression that the education system was the biggest problem in America at that point in time. And so I felt obliged or obligated to pursue education and become an educator, and honestly become my goals and ambitions in the education system was to be a teacher, then a principal, then get on the school board, get into on the political aspect, maybe even National Board of Education, stuff like that. Then when fast forward, go to college, when I'm a junior in college, I get arrested for selling hash oil, and then they sent me to prison for a year. So I did, or the sentence was 18 to 24 months, and I did 12 months. Well, technically I did 4 months in jail, and then 8 months in prison. Then when I got out of prison, I recognized that having a felony, even though it's nonviolent, living in the society that we live in right now and how stigmatized a felony is, it wouldn't make it impossible for me to get a job in the American public education system, but it would hinder my chances significantly from getting that job. So I decided, what do I really, and what am I passionate about? What do I want to do? What do I feel? And then I was really, really, really drawn to conveying my thoughts and my messages on a screen. And I felt like
As you can see, they are now
ambition, that artistic
using force.
creativity. I felt
friend of mine
that
just got-
if I can
A friend of mine just
manifest
got
my
arrested.
thoughts and
They are now
manifest
forcefully-
all
They
my
are now
ideas and
using
convey
force
that
to disperse a
into a
peaceful
beautiful
protest.
image with a
I wish
movie
the
or
motherfucker
video,
would. They are now
and
shooting
I
to the
was
ground.
really satisfied. And I was satisfied. Then, fast forward, also I will say that I got out of prison in October 2018.
They are now-
Videography in 2018. 2019.
They have now cornered us and are shooting pepper balls
2020,
into the crowd.
when George Floyd was murdered by Derek Chauvin in Minneapolis, my passion was hijacked by activism and community advocacy, and to where my priorities were significantly changed, and I wasn't prioritizing and I wasn't focusing on videography as much as I was focusing on community advocacy and activism and organizing. And so now, fast forward to where we're at now, trying to make pro-Black, trying to expand pro-Black into
Your foundation program.
right. Into a more of a community organization rather than just a direct action organization, which we were kind of looked at as just direct action because we were the ones putting on all the protests in Omaha and doing a lot of the protests. But now I really want to focus still on that, because that's still a vital and essential part of a movement, of any revolution, is you do need direct action. But then also, revolution cannot happen without community engagement, and you need community outreach. And so that's why we want to fast forward to food programs, clothing pantries, handing out essential items, women products, hygiene products, stuff like that. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now, and that's a little short synopsis of the last 7 years of my life.
That's amazing, like the background that you come from, and persevering and creating this foundation, and pretty much like putting that first step in your community. Could you say that with George Floyd's death, do you think that kind of shifted and showed your path of what you really needed to do in this community, or did you have ideals and ideas for pro-Black before George Floyd's death?
Right. And so I do want to put on record that I didn't found pro-Black. So how this all was established, pro-Black was founded by 3 Black women, and they did it right after George Floyd died, and they founded it, and they wanted to create a Black-led space. Our first meeting was June 14th, and that's where I met everybody. I emerged as a leader in the organization a few weeks later on, just by organizing protests. I organized a city hall budget hearing on the police department, and we did a protest inside of there where we were interrupting the mayor when she was speaking.
To provide high-quality, transparent services that
Defund the police!
and minimize
Defund the
impact
police!
to our citizens and
Defund the police!
You're out of order.
Defund the police! 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 20% goes to human rights and relations! Defund the police! Defund the police! Defund the police!
Defund the police!
Defund the police!
Defund the police! Give the money to teachers to fund the police!
You're out of order.
Defund the police! 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 Shame on you! Defund the police!
Bye now.
Give the money to the teachers!
started out well. I think I might just repeat myself here. Managing expenses this year and developing a sound and responsible budget for next year has been very challenging. Our goal is to continue to provide high-quality
40% of general
service,
funding goes to the
services
police.
that enhance our
40%
city.
of the general fund goes to police. That's 100 times more than the library.
Ma'am, you have to leave. You're out of order.
Defund the police. 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 Defund the police.
Anyone else? All right. I'll repeat. Managing expenses this year and developing a sound and responsible budget for next year has been very challenging. Our goal is to continue to provide high-quality, transparent services that enhance our city and minimize impacts on our citizens and our employees. Thank you to the council members for all of your input and your ideas while developing this budget. Our budget priorities always reflect the goals, investments, and services that sustain and uplift a great and proud city. In May, Omaha voters approved one of the most significant financial...
Defund the police.
Okay.
Why are we spending more on the police funding than our libraries, than our teachers, than helping? Why are we spending all this money on police funding? Using that funding to then tear down innocent citizens who are protesters, who are using their rights to protest.
Have fun. Might as well do it now.
Defund the police.
So we got to page 2. So here we go.
Defund the police. 159 million is way too much money to be spending on the police. Defund the police. You are a coward, Gene. You smirk, but you are a fucking coward. You know it.
Are we ready? City Council. Yes. Okay. In May, the Omaha voters approved one of the most significant financial and community improvement initiatives in years. A $200 million bond issue to create a long-term sustainable pavement maintenance program and a levy increase to fund it. Both passed overwhelmingly. The tax rate change will pay off the bonds. Our streets have been underfunded for decades, and this solution is long overdue. Immediately after voter approval, we started taking bids on work on many new projects. Some are underway now.
You don't fund the people, you fund the police. Bye-bye. Fund the people. Defund the police.
Immediately after voter approval, we started taking bids for work on many of the new projects, and some are underway now. This year, in 2020, we have already awarded 30 additional street resurfacing projects worth $21.5 million. In 2021, we plan to double that amount, adding $40 million to street projects. This is in addition to the resurfacing, repair, and construction spending already in our city budget and capital improvement program. Although the additional street projects have already started, I am pleased to tell you that the tax rate will not change until 2022. We will use available cash management and existing bond capacity to pay the full cost of the new street projects this year and next, and then we'll replenish the funds in 2022. A portion of the new funding, $6 million each year, can be directed to unimproved street projects throughout the city. These are streets that were not initially built to current city standards by developers. For decades, improvements could only be made if the property owners paid for it. We changed that policy 1.5 years ago with input from a citizen task force. We now share the cost with the homeowners who petitioned to create street maintenance districts or road improvement districts. However, the policy allows for an exception in high poverty areas where the city will pay 100% of the cost to reconstruct the unimproved streets. I have directed our Public Works Department to skip the petition process in these neighborhoods and begin working on the unimproved streets in high poverty areas that have already been designated. We will simply schedule and do the work on these streets that have been neglected for so long. This is a vital long-term improvement to neighborhood streets. For most of 2020, we have focused on the coronavirus pandemic. Douglas County and the state of Nebraska have been tremendous partners, and I personally want to thank Dr. Adi Kaur and Governor Keith Ricketts for their teamwork. COVID-19 requires our ongoing vigilance to keep each other safe and keep each other healthy. Please let us all continue to do our part for a healthier community. COVID has also affected our 2020 city budget like no other economic setbacks have done in history. We have incurred and we will continue to incur significant expenses that no one could have anticipated and no, we could not budget for. There has been significant impact on our revenue.
The Omaha Police Department makes up nearly 40% of the general fund budget. We need to defund the police and we need to reroute that to other places. Okay. We need to defund the police and put it towards education.
I know.
Arts. We need to put it towards our parks. We need to put it back into the community, not towards the police.
With COVID, there's been a significant impact on our revenue, which funds every city department and services that we offer for the community and for employee salary. Our general fund revenue shortfalls through the end of this year will likely exceed $56 million. This is primarily due to reduced sales tax and occupation tax revenue, and I am committed to finding solutions. Months ago, we initiated immediate cost-saving measures. These included a hiring freeze and a freeze on optional discretionary spending. We reduced 2020 department budgets by $5 million. We have tried to reduce police and fire overtime. We eliminated 800 part-time positions through furloughs and canceled summer jobs in city departments. We closed libraries and community centers and canceled summer camps and neighborhood grants. These actions will result in savings of nearly $20 million. But we also have more than $75 million in COVID-related expenses. So you see, we have reached a critical point right now. We need a formal commitment now from the state of Nebraska and Douglas County to distribute the CARES Act funds both entities have already received from the federal government. Together, they have received $1.25 billion. The intent of the CARES Act is for the state and the county to reimburse local governments for COVID-related expenses.
Defund the police.
Yet neither has formalized a commitment to do that.
Defund the police. Defund the police.
Bye-bye.
Defund the police.
We need immediate action or severe cuts to our 2020 budget will be imminent. This includes cuts to services and programs that people rely on and layoffs across all city departments, including public safety. This could happen. So I am asking again for a responsible and immediate distribution of the CARES Act funding from the state and from Douglas County. While we continue to manage our 2020 budget, we have simultaneously developed our recommended 2021 budget, which I'm presenting to the City Council today. The 2021 budget is based on our expectations that Omaha's economy will continue to recover from the devastating effects of the pandemic. Let me share some of the highlights, changes, new expenditures, all designed to improve services and provide good service to the Omaha taxpayers. The total general fund spending for 2021 will be just over $439 million, which is a 4.6% increase over 2020. The largest expense that is driving this increase is the cost of our new solid waste collection contract and processing of recyclable materials. Without that expense in the general fund budget, the departmental budget increase for 2021 would be approximately just 2%. The 2021 budget for all funds will be about $1.2 billion. The proposed property tax levy for 2021 will remain unchanged. There will be no levy increase in 2021. Given the financial challenges that we face this year and next, I am pleased that for the last 8 years, my recommended budgets have either lowered or maintained the property tax levy. I have never increased the city's tax levy. We anticipate net sales tax revenue to be up 4.4% in 2021. We estimate property values that are set by the Douglas County Assessor will increase about 6%, resulting in increased revenue to the city. We will also carry over $7 million from the 2019 budget surplus. During the time that I have been mayor, our carryovers or surpluses have now totaled over $74 million. Careful budgeting and spending management helps us control those expenses and tax rates over time. We are proud of our strong financial performance. And now for department-specific proposals. We will continue to appropriately fund the Omaha Police Department.
40% of the people's money is dedicated to the local We will not forget about Booker T accommodationist, bootlicking Democrats that also sit on the city council and are culpable with programs of warfare against people. Bye now. Why aren't we getting rid of the people?
I would remind, you're out of order, sir.
Well, what about 277?
Right.
Sir, you're out of order.
You're a liar. You're a liar. You're a coward. How could you support a white supremacist rally? How can you do that?
That's why I'm running against you, because people are screaming out there.
I would remind all of those in attendance.
Defund the mayor. That's the problem. Defund the mayor.
Hey, no pushing. You're fine.
How could you support a white supremacist rally and talk about improvements for our community? You're a fucking liar!
There's your bag.
Thank you. Fuck you, Gene Stopper!
Okay, shall I continue?
Bear, when you interrupted the mayor during the budget hearing, what exactly from the pro-black foundation, that what you guys were protesting, what were you guys specifically upset about in the budget hearing, and what did you guys expect or want changed from that?
Right. So we wanted to emphasize the verbiage that we have been demanding of defund the police. We still feel and we're really adamant about this, that the police are siphoning money from communities, from our communities, especially the Black and brown communities, and adding it into their pockets, into their budgets, into their bonuses. So the police make up 40% of our general budget. 10% of that, if we take away 10% of that, we could add that into so many other humanitarian outlets to where we could work it for the community. But the police use threats, like the chief would say, if they defund the police, then it would cause unintended consequences or unintentional consequences. They're creating this fear of, we need the police for this, we need the police for that. When we say abolish the police, we're not saying that there's not going to be any police officers. We do need some sort of police, but we need to abolish the system that the police perpetuate of oppression and systemic and enforce systemic and institutional racism. That's when we say abolish the police. This budget hearing, it was the budget hearing proposal. So this is where they were proposing for our 2021 city budget. We were really adamant about the police handling of James Scurlock. James Scurlock, backstory on him, he was a 22-year-old Black male, was murdered during our George Floyd protest by a racist bar owner, Jake Gardner. We felt completely disrespected because the Omaha Police Department actually drove Jake Gardner to the airport to help him escape from Omaha, from the masses of the people. So that was just another complete slap in the face from the people. So we did want to make our stance known. We had all of the news media, all of our local media was there. As soon as the mayor started speaking, that's when each person, we had about 10 people, we would stand up and just interrupt her. We had our signs, we would scream anything along the lines of defunding the police, fund the people, for the people, fund the people, defund the police, fund the people, everything along those lines. And every minute, so she would start talking, we would yell at her, then the police would take us out, and then she would start talking again, and then another person would do it. And we just wanted to agitate her, and then we also wanted to get our word across. So we wanted the media to see that the constituents of Omaha were not happy and satisfied with where the money was being allocated. And so in that regards, we were successful on making our voices heard. We were unsuccessful with defunding the police, and they actually added more money to the police department.
Wow.
And then also, just after they murdered Kenneth Jones, who was a Black man, they just murdered him at the end of November, right before Thanksgiving. They added a proposal, and they signed off on the proposal that for the next 5 years, the police are going to get a 5% increase in their budget. So that means that they're going to be getting 43% of our general funds in our city budget is going to be going to the police department. That is naive and oblivious and ignorant thinking to think that we can eradicate crime and halt it or stall it in any way, shape, or form by adding more policing. So why is it that in the inner cities there's more policing, but the inner cities have the most crime? So if we need more police, and if we need to add more police, and we need all this and we need all that, why is the inner cities not being helped or not succeeding and progressing and in an adequate way. And that's because we believe that the remedy of inner city violence is coming from, is to add in more police to police them and to lock them up, rather than starting from the source and creating more community programs, creating more opportunities, knocking down blockades, knocking down obstacles that are hindering people from succeeding and progressing in our society. That makes them resort to violence and other felonious acts when they are restricted from opportunities time and time again. Well, going off on a little tangent, but we were at the budget hearing to defund the police, and that was really the first protest that I organized solely as well, and so that kind of also helped me emerge into the leadership role. And then that was about 2 weeks before July 25th, and then July 25th.
And before we get on July 25th, I coming out of that council meeting, there was actually, even though you guys didn't hear the news that you guys wanted to, and you may not have gotten the reactions you wanted to, but there were still a lot of positive things that came out of that interruption. The Omaha Public Schools small protests that went out at some high schools, where a lot of students came together along with their parents, and some other people from the board talked about canceling the contract with the Omaha Police Department, and taking the police out of their schools, taking and just abolishing that contract. A lot of people started talking about defunding the police more seriously in ways that were accomplishable. Like, these are proper steps that we can go through, take them out, and it was shocking to hear when the city reacted the way it does. Mm-hmm. And is there anything that really that you wish would have came out of that situation that didn't? Besides the city giving more money to the police, do you wish that they gave it more to the education system specifically, or different projects going around in Omaha?
Right, and so that's another thing that Pro-Black is doing for 2021 for the city elections, is we are creating our own budget proposal, where we are proposing where the funds should be allocated.
You're proposing your own budget.
Exactly, yeah. So that's what we're creating that right now. Throughout the protests and throughout the summer, we always said defund the police and put it into and reallocate it to more humanitarian outlets, which we still are under that impression, and that's still our sentiments, but we need to be more precise and specific on where we're going, whether that go to Heartland Family Services, or 500,000 goes to this nonprofit, 500,000 goes to this nonprofit, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So then we can have our own proposal where we can be like, no, this is where the community feels as though this money should be allocated. So, and to answer your question, just on a really vague base, just more humanitarian outlets and more community programs rather than the police department.
Anything. Ain't nobody resisting anything. I'm not resisting. I'm 6 feet away from you. I'm 6 feet away from you. I'm not blocking anything, brother. Hey, I'm not blocking anything. I ain't blocking anything. I didn't do nothing. Everybody get your cameras out. This is the oppressive system trying to fight back against our resistance. Hands up, don't shoot. Hands up, don't shoot.
Get off the road. Look at him. They are now using force to disperse a peaceful protest. Back up! Get on the sidewalk. Man.
I'm on the sidewalk!
Holy shit! He tased him!
Get off the road. Look at him. They are now using force to disperse a peaceful protest. Back up! Get off the sidewalk.
Back to that July 25th date before I interrupted you about the defund the police question and the proposal that you guys are making. Please continue.
So for July 25th, we decided there was a national call out from an organization. I forgot what the organization was. It was like a progressive leftist organization, but they called for a national call out for solidarity with the protesters in Portland who were being subjected to complete fascism inflicted on by the federal agents that were snatching people up, abusing them, terrorizing them, harassing them, traumatizing them, brutalizing them. So in Portland, there was a national call out to stand in solidarity with the protesters, and then also we wanted to add in our own, and then also national solidarity for just against police brutality and to abolish the oppressive system that the police departments across the country perpetuate. So. And then we also wanted to add on to our own personal tragedy and our own local tragedy with the James Scurlock murder by a racist bar owner. So we were standing in solidarity with our comrades in Portland, and then we were also standing in solidarity with the Scurlock family, demanding justice and demanding that Jay Gardner be arrested, charges filed on. So,
what was the reaction like from the community besides outside of pro-black and outside of the people that were supporting the outcry against police brutality? What was the other side looking like? What was on July 25th? What was the police reaction that day? What was the All Lives Matter movement reaction that day?
Right. So the police didn't know what to do. They definitely screwed up big time, which is why they're being sued right now. So we decided to peacefully protest, and we decided to peacefully protest in the streets, and we marched downtown. We had bike marshals, so we had people that were blocking the traffic so the cars weren't able to hit us. So we were being safe. We were being diligent in those regards. And then about 90% finished with the march. The march was about like 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. Right before we were about to circle back and we were about to end up where we started, we had to cross a bridge, which was over the highway and on Farnham Street. And then the police kettled us, so they blocked me. I was leading it, so they had a line of cars on the front of the bridge, and then as soon as the end of the protesters got on top of the bridge, then they blocked off the backside of it, so we couldn't go anywhere unless we jumped off the bridge. Then that's when they started shooting pepper balls at us, point blank range. Wow. There's children in the crowd. They were crying. They really, really fucked me up. They choked me out, kneed me in the ribs, said I was resisting arrest, and I still have a charge for resisting arrest, which there's a video that completely objects to that. But so they, the crazy thing is that we were protesting police brutality, and our protest on police brutality was met with police brutality. And to make matters worse, after they were pepperballing people at point blank range and brutalizing people, they decided to arrest everybody on the bridge.
How many people were on that bridge?
126.
All 126 got arrested.
The children, there was no minors that got arrested, but there was old people in the crowd, like women that were 60, 50. There was actually a woman who her husband is a lawyer and he helps out with the ACLU. So like that was also a segue into the ACLU. But yeah, there was people. And then also there was a woman who wasn't even part of the protest who was in a hotel. She was a pilot stewardess or whatever. And so she was just in Omaha on a overnight, and she saw outside of her hotel a protest, and she was like, oh, literally FaceTiming her boyfriend, like, oh wow, look at this, look what's happening in Omaha. And then she was like, here, I want to show you. And she was on the sidewalk. They even arrested her, and she was like, she wasn't
even part of the protest.
No, exactly. And so they subjected us to very inhumane conditions as well. So it was so overcrowded that people were chilling in zip ties for 8 hours. It was 100-degree weather. So there was at least 50 people in the Douglas County Jail parking lot for 7 hours, zip tied, 100-degree weather. People were peeing on themselves or urinating on themselves. One person fell unconscious due to heat exhaustion, hit his head on the concrete, went to the hospital. 3 hours later, came back and had to get zip tied again to be sat down in that same parking lot. And then also this was during COVID. So then they bunched people up into 20-man cells. They had 40 people in this cell. We were trying to, our Nebraska Left Coalition, who is our bail fund, they bail out all First Amendment arrests, stuff like that, where we were protesting. So they help us out tremendously. They were trying to bond everybody out. The police wouldn't let them. So we were in there for, the longest person was in there, I think, for 32 hours, and that was Ernie Chambers' niece. And then I was
Ernie Chambers' niece.
Yeah, I was in there for 24 hours. I think the earliest somebody got released was about 16 hours, 14 hours, something like that.
Wow.
But we should have been, we shouldn't have even been in there for that long. One, we shouldn't have been arrested.
Exactly.
But the fact that we did get arrested and then we were subjected to inhumane conditions just shows the complete negligence of our carceral system that is supposed to protect us and is supposed to, we're supposed to trust them to protect us, and which they are supposed to give us that right. We're peacefully protesting, which is what we are suing against, which is why the judge actually dropped all the charges against the protesters that they kept on trying to move forward with.
And in this lawsuit, the ACLU, all those demands and all those things, the pressing charges, could you, from the date of July 25th, could you go into deeper detail about exactly what you guys are pressing charges about, exactly as many specifics as you can, and for the viewers at home to understand exactly what is going on with this lawsuit? Obviously, it came from this July 25th protest, but what exactly, what are you guys hoping to see as the result from it, and really, how does it benefit all those people that were in the protest with you?
Right. So what we're demanding is, one, more accountability and transparency within our police department. Two, to abolish the use of chemical agents against the constituents of the communities. So we look at tear gas as a very indiscriminate weapon, where if you have a group of 500 people and one person throws a brick, but then you tear gas all of them, you're tear gassing 499 peaceful protesters, all because that one person threw that brick. So in those regards, we do think that the tear gas is extremely indiscriminate, and we wanted to completely eradicate that from the police's use of force. Also, we wanted to drop all charges against protesters as well. They shouldn't have been charged to begin with. And then also, we wanted to create protections to protesters for future protests, and where now the ordinance for obstructing a passageway is super vague and is completely up to the discretion of the police department. Now we're trying to create an ordinance proposal where it is also has protections with the protesters, and it's discretion with the constituents of Omaha as well, to protect us from peacefully protesting and raising our voice and letting our voices be heard. So those are what we're really trying to accomplish through the lawsuit. And honestly, the cherry on top is putting them on notice and putting and holding them accountable. And so the community witnesses, and nationally, all national news cover this, Yahoo, ABC, NBC, where they showed Omaha Police Department being sued by ACLU of Nebraska for excessive force. So we're holding them accountable for their actions as well. And so that is just the icing on the cake for everything.
That's amazing that you guys are getting this national recognition. With all this media coverage now of this lawsuit, you guys suing the Omaha Police Department, has it brought in a lot of outside sources giving you guys positive reinforcement, like guys reaching out saying, how can I help? How can I do this? Or just saying, hey, thank you so much.
Yeah,
outside of Omaha and outside of Nebraska.
Right. And so the lawsuit actually got me in contact with NBC, and NBC did an article on me and a couple other organizers throughout the country. And that was generated from the lawsuit. So like that did give me that in those regards. But then also, yes, community, it does show more community members what we're about, what pro-Black is, what we're trying to accomplish, and what we're doing for the community. So if people who didn't know about us or wasn't up to speed on everything, they can get acclimated with what we're about, our ideals, by this almost teaser that they would see pro-Black sues Omaha Police Department. So yeah, we are getting more collaborations, more people willing to work with us, and also just getting credibility as well, as an organization and as a foundation in Omaha fighting against social injustices.
And as of, do you know when you're getting, I know you're towards the end of this federal lawsuit, how many days do you know till the sentence comes out? Or
so I'm supposed to do a press release, or I'm supposed to have my statement for a press release either by today or tomorrow. So I'm probably going to write that tonight. So we're going to present it to the public here. Should be honestly this week, to be honest with you.
So by the time this even gets out, the results will
100%
be out.
Yeah. So I don't have all of the. There's a lot of stuff that we're agreeing to, so I don't have all of the things total, but the biggest things that we changed was the ordinance where they said that it was illegal to obstruct a passageway, except we gave exemption to any national news or local news affairs that is credible and significant in social justice or anything in those regards. Within 5 days, we have the right to peacefully protest in the street, as long as we are peacefully protesting and we are being safe and vigilant in all of those regards. But that 5 days protects us from citations, arrests, and all of that. It also allows. We also the Omaha Police Department is creating training for handling protests, or protest training and protest handling, and all uniformed officers have to go through that within the next 2 years as well. So that's another thing. All charges against all protesters are going to be officially dropped because the judge dropped them, but then the city appealed that and they wanted to get them recharged. So now they're dropping those charges. And then also they're gonna be more discriminate on the use of chemical agents, and also whenever they use chemical agents on constituents of the community, they have to report it in the press release to let people know, okay, we deployed this amount, we deployed this amount, we deployed this amount.
Keeping them accountable.
Exactly. And then also whenever they shoot pepper balls, they need to relay that message to the crowd. If you guys do not such and such, then we will deploy the pepper ball. Warning them instead of just blatantly
just opening up.
Exactly. And then also all of this is going to be tied into a consent decree, and the consent decree is the city, the chief of police, all of them, they have to sign on a contract, and that is legally binding them to this agreement.
Mhm.
So if they go back on this at all, we can take them to court and hold them liable for going against this agreement as well. So that is the biggest thing that we would have.
I think it's amazing that you're making this step to hold the police accountable and putting realistic ways and steps for us to accomplish these goals, not just saying we want this, and then just leaving it up to them. You guys are really putting in the work. You're putting in this groundwork in the courtroom of saying, hey, this is how we do what we need. This is how you can do it. All these. What has the reaction been from the police in the courtroom or the Omaha Police Department? How have they reacted to your demands and your suggestions?
Right, and at the end of the day, pro-black, we're really adamant on not discussing anything with the police, not talking to them, not having any engagement whatsoever, because we believe that if we do have any type of engagement, they will use that to spew their propaganda. Where, prime example, during the George Floyd protest, where a curfew was initiated for 8 o'clock, we were kneeling down, holding our fists up at 7 o'clock. We were holding our fists up, and then the police, they decided to kneel with us because all the news cameras or the news was there, and they got photo shoots of the police kneeling with the protesters. Oh, look at this big solidarity. The police care about this. Come 8 o'clock, once the camera stopped, we are getting beat up, batoned, gassed because we weren't inside of our house by 8 o'clock. Yeah. So we recognize that any engagement that we have with the police, they can use against us.
For their own proper,
exactly.
For their own image,
and they will they'll feed that to the public as much as they can. So, and then also at the end of the day, they cannot change any laws. They can only enforce them. So exactly. So our communication and our conversation should be with policymakers, city council, senators, legislators, people in those positions of power, not the enforcers of the laws and the enforcers of the system, because they can't do anything.
Exactly.
So we do think that it's pointless to have any communication with them whatsoever. The only reason why they're even we were having that mediation with them in the court is because we named Chief Schmatter and Captain Matuzzo in the lawsuit. So the city asked for them to be there. But at the end of the day, we're still discussing this with the city, and we're still telling the city that we want the police to do this. And then the chief of police is saying that, oh no, well, this is already what we do, this is our policy, yada yada yada. It's like, then why did you shoot 8 pepper balls at the Kennedy Jones protest and there was no warning at all, and they're all so so we can't just take your word for it. So there was a lot of there's a lot of
footage of this too. I know.
Exactly.
I know when the first protest happened, right after George Floyd's death, when the protest organized on 72nd and Dodge, people were in the street. Police just blatantly throw tear gas onto the people in the front lines, and we have a lot of footage of that we'll be showing in the video, and it's crazy to think that a lot of people still back the police and things like that. And what do you say to people when they anti-protest your protest, or they come at you with all this uninformed hate against pro-black, or to you, or to the protests, or what you guys are trying to do to better the community? What do you say back? How do you respond to that?
Right, because there's a lot of condemnation with protests and the severity and to the extent of the protests, and people feel as though they have the right to limit people's protests and how they exert their anger. So Martin Luther King, and he wrote a letter from Birmingham jail when he got arrested, and in the letter he just talked about his complete discontent with American society, in specific the white liberal. And he said that the white liberal, we can't morally compromise with people or morally identify consciously with people who prefer order rather than justice. So those same people that are condemning the protests in Minneapolis, they're not even recognizing the reason that they are protesting. And even if they are recognizing the reason, then they're using that and saying, yes, we recognize that you guys are being oppressed. We recognize that you guys are you guys are downtrodden, that you guys are being harassed, terrorized, but don't be upset like that. Be upset and exert your anger how I want you to exert it, and exert your anger how I view it morally correct. Even though most of the time the condemnation comes from white people, they have never experienced what Black and brown individuals have experienced. So they have never felt that anger that we have. They've never felt that oppression that we have. So for them to say how they should act, that's like telling a woman who was raped how she should feel against her rapist.
Exactly.
And I don't think anybody has the right to tell a woman how she should feel towards her rapist. And our Black women have been, and brown women have been being raped from our country since the dawn of time. So we as a community cannot be engrossed and fixated on the acts of a protest, and we need to be fixated on the reasons for the protest.
Exactly.
Because if we're so hell-bent on what the protesters are doing and what's happening with the protests, we're completely overshadowing the reason why this is happening and the root of the problem. And we're not even talking about George Floyd anymore. We're talking about Minneapolis police station burning down.